car comes in the shop and you fix why it maybe got towed in or why the battery was dead, but they leave with a burned out taillight. You're getting a demerit from your customer.
I always get embarrassed when those demerits come back. Someone
Yeah.
comes back, hey, what about this? That's why I'm so big on systematic checks. And we talk about the cockpit and the airplane and the checklist that they go through. These shops that you're working with, you want to make sure they're very systematic so you don't go in and get something fixed and totally miss a safety item. So make sure everything is
and
fixed.
even just, it drives me nuts. They're pulling out of the parking lot and there's a third brake light burned out. It just makes me scream.
Yes.
And it's not the $2 in sale that I'm worried about.
Oh, it's you didn't take care of your customer.
Yeah.
Hey, a new feature today, mystery sounds.
A little long.
It is a little long. If you guys have any idea what that noise was that I played that Matt just blew past me on, give us a call. Belts. I want to bring up belts because we talk about things that are going to put you on the side of the road in summertime.
Belts and hoses.
Belts and hoses. In the old days, we had V-belts, and there was several of them. One for the alternator, one for the air condition, maybe one for the water pump. There was a belt for everything, and belts went to serpentine belts, or a flat, wide belt. And a lot of times there was one, sometimes maybe two, or even three, but the serpentine belt took the place of the V belt.
And I think they get serpentine. I'm thinking the snake. It serpentines or it winds around all these different pulleys. And if you were to cut this belt in half and stretch it the whole length, those things can be 6 or 7 feet long in some cases. And it's just designed to get a better, it's saving room for one. If you stack accessories on the front of an engine, you're adding, you could add 10 inches in depth to the front of the engine. So they want to save room and make that more compact, but then actually get a better wrap around the pulleys to make all the accessories like the air conditioner or the alternator spin better.
In the old days, replacing belts, I think, was more frequent, and belt squeaks were more frequent. But with the serpentine belt, you got one belt running everything. The good and bad of it is that if one component goes bad, such as an alternator, you're stuck.
Well, if it seizes and breaks the belt, you're dead stick. You're dead in the water because you don't have 3 other belts. Before you could lose the alternator and still make it because the water pump was spinning, but
those days are done.
You're done.
Well, this is the big change that people may not be aware of, is that you come to maybe Virginia Auto, someone says, hey, I want my belts checked. You go check the belt out, and you say, yeah, you definitely need a belt. And they tell someone else, they say, I just looked at the belt. That belt was fine. I didn't see any cracks in it or anything.
You guys are trying to get me.
Yeah, you guys at Virginia Auto Service.
Yeah. Well, so the belt technology has evolved. And by the way, we've posted a bunch of stuff on Facebook about this. So if you want to go learn, I learned some more today just watching these videos while we were getting ready. What I was saying, the old serpentine belts it's really called a Micro V because there's multiple little V's or V belts put together.
5 ribs, 6 ribs across the face. Well, traditionally they were neoprene, and we would measure, we would look for cracks. If you had 3 cracks per 3 inches, they say that it had 80% of its life used out of it. Now cracks don't even really show up because we've gone to elastomer, which is
EPDM. I probably couldn't pronounce it if we're not for the acronym, but
elastomer is a safe bet. You can use that all you want, but they don't crack. So the thing is they wear just like tires. So there's material taken off the face of it. So it's actually not the face of it, but down in the bottom of the groove.
In the groove, yeah. You're deepening the groove. And losing material. So as you're losing material, the belt can't tension properly because the tensioner has to stretch further. You might get it starts to get glazed. They don't necessarily crack, so they can slip or hydroplane on the pulleys, and that's where you get some of your squeaking from. And so really the way to do that is there's a special tool. It's not all that special.
It's a piece of plastic. It's a piece of plastic. Feeler gauge, if you want to call it that.
Or like a toothpick. It almost resembles a toothpick with a handle. But what we do, and this is on the Facebook page, but if you put that tool down inside the groove of the pulley and you cannot feel it, that means the grooves have deepened and the belt is bad. But to the average guy, like Dave said, you go to Virginia Auto Service, and the guy in the cubicle next to Sally used to work on a car one time, and he goes out and pops the hood at lunch and goes, "Those guys are just getting you the belt's not worn, not cracked.
It looks just fine." In the old days, that would have been true, but
we're not looking for cracks.
And that's the thing, is the rules have changed, and that's one of the things we like to keep you up to date on this show, is that what was true yesterday is not true today. So, but before the break, I said we would talk about the most important thing you should consider when replacing your serpentine belt.
The tensioner. The tension you can put it. You have a squeaky belt, and you go put a new belt on it, squeaking in 2 weeks. It's not the belt.
It's the tensioner was
the
never.
tensioner. You've got it. It used to be, you just use the alternator or the air conditioner, and they had an adjustable mechanism on them, so you
bracket,
could crank on the alternator and put some belt tension on it. You feel it. It's pretty good, nice and tight. You put it on, and then those required back in the day periodic retensioning. You got to adjust the belts. We don't adjust belts.
This is
anymore.
an automatic belt tensioner.
Yes.
So it is spring loaded, and that's actually what's putting the load on the belt, as well as there's a bushing in there that likes to wear out and change the alignment of the belt, and that's another reason belts don't grab or like they should. So
misalignment, and then you have just loose, and those wear out. And with these new EPDM belts or the elastomer belts that don't show cracks, and they go 100,000 miles typically before they're worn out, they've designed these systems where they have about the same life expectancy out of all the components.
So if you're in a shop and they're recommending a belt to you, and they don't recommend a tensioner, maybe you should be asking, hey, should I be considering a tensioner this time? So that's something we can educate you on, that, I don't know, just throwing belts at it every 20, 30,000 miles isn't the answer. Just buy it once, 100,000 miles, and get a tensioner to go with it. I think that's a way to do it.
And because the air, it's just the car doesn't work right. The battery may not charge well. The air conditioning may not work right if it's not properly tensioned. So, the squeeze test, you can go in. We were talking about belts first, and then the squeeze test on the hoses. You want to see if they are pliable. And you really want to be checking closer to the inlets and the outlets where they connect to the radiator hose. See if they are soft. And what's happening is they're rotting from within. The coolant, there's mechanical and electronic things happening with all the different coolants and inside the engine, and the belts actually rot from the inside out, so you can't see them.
So you really want to be squeezing that hose from end to end. So at the neck of the radiator, follow that hose all the way down to the water pump or the thermostat housing to make sure it's good and solid, and there's no real voids in there, because you're going to have a weak spot. Is what we're looking for.
Right. And then some of the manufacturers of the belts and hoses, they're saying, replace them every 75,000 miles. Well, I think that goes without saying on some cars. There's certain cars, like where the thermostat comes out, you want to go ahead and use, be looking at that. And maybe the time to replace that hose is when you're doing the radiator.
Right.
But then you see other hoses. You see a Honda, the hose is never, well, I shouldn't say never, but they never go bad on a Honda. But then you have maybe a Kia. We see the belt or the hoses fail in those a little bit more. So it depends on your car. I would not just arbitrarily go in and start changing hoses because, you've got 75,000 miles. It's communication with your shop and your conditions in your car.
Do you know what that mystery sound is?
I do, because you told me. As a matter of fact, we've got this sound library where we were working over years with Steve Filmer. He used to be, I think, on Channel 5.
Right.
Doing noises. He was recording digital noises. And we're helping do that. He's developing a product for the automotive SAE, Society of Automotive Engineers, developing a product, and we've been helping him get all these different noises. Whenever we have a problem car that's making a good noise, he'd come in the shop and record. So we're going to start using those throughout the show,
right,
to go ahead and give you symptoms in the noise that you have.
What they sound like.
And I'm going to try and put this to work at my service counter. So when people come in and they have a noise, we'll have a library of noises that we can play.
Does it sound like this or sound like that?
Yeah, so you don't have to get them, going in there. And, I like to tease customers, what does that noise say? And we have this one customer, she says, it's like a click, clackety, click. And I said, well, can you do that? So she's over there, and then you might have one squeaking, so you got a canary on your I like to tease, like, do that one more time. I want to see if Tim heard that one. I think he might know what it is. So it becomes a game on the counter.
Well, I think the one thing, speaking of noises, when you do go into a shop and you are communicating a noise, don't be afraid to take them outside. Say, can I show the noise to you so you can see what I'm talking about?
If you could ever show me a noise.
You semantics. But really, so they don't fix the wrong noise, because I have fixed the wrong noise before. We fixed something that was so obvious to us, and the customer picked it up, and they go, man, the noise is still in the car, We fix this other noise, and they say, oh, that's been doing that since day one. I got used to that noise a long time ago.
Noises, rattles. And they're tough to find. So what I hear, different people with different, hear different pitches. It's noises can be a different one. And then we're talking about belts making noise. squirt, squirt, or chirp, chirp, chirp,
The
chirp.
little chirp, chirp, chirp noise is more of an alignment noise, and then there's the squeal where you can hear the belt skipping over the pulley. We're going to go with Flo on a 2006 Corolla. Go ahead, Flo. You're on Bumper to Bumper Radio.
Hey, guys. Thanks for taking my call. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Cool. I just had a quick question. I recently changed my transmission. The Corolla that I have is manual, and initially in the owner's manual it says that you can use GL4 or GL5 transmission fluid, and I initially bought GL4 but ended up dropping one of the bottles all over the engine because my funnel collapsed. And then I couldn't find GL4 at the auto store, and I bought GL5. And when I put the GL5 in there, I thought it was okay, but then I read online that GL5 shouldn't be used in my manual Corolla. I got a little bit confused because online people were saying, don't ever put GL5 because it eats away the
it'll chew up some of the the gears or the synchronizers. And first, Flo, I have to apologize to you because I know you sent me an email about this, and I haven't answered your question because I've put some feelers out to some oil people, the technical people of the oil, to find out the true difference, because I got some of the same information that you got when I did my research. Inconclusive. They're two people, different manufacturers saying different things about the same product, and Dave has
You
got
had a
thought.
manual transmission question in gear oil, and you didn't even call me?
Well, I know.
You called
but
other experts.
But it's GL4 or GL5, and it's the acidity of the oil, or what the additive package that's in the oil. It's not going to instantly hurt anything. It would be over the long term, if anything. But what do you think, Dave?
So your answer, his factory manual said GL4 or GL5, either one. The other thing we didn't talk about is the viscosity of the oil, because you can have a GL4 that's a 80-90, and then you can have a GL4 that's something else other than that. So, but I would go with the GL4. That would be what we would use at Tri-City Transmission to service that Toyota.
GL4. Okay.
GL4.
And we're following and just seeing what the manual says, or what our information, Mitchell or all data, whatever that has us use, is what we're using. And personally, I'm using synthetic in everything.
Yeah.
Especially on the gear oils. And you've got to be careful, too. We use Redline. And at first, I'm glad I started reading the bottle. It says 7590. That's gear oil. And then there's a 7590. They call it NS, no slip. The synthetic gear oil, in some cases, can actually be too slippery and doesn't allow the transmission to work right.
Well, a lot of these late model manual transmissions, they have fiber rings, so they almost have a clutch on the inside of them, just like you would see in an automatic transmission. So we're talking about a manual, but it's a fiber ring, and they're 3-part and 5-part rings. So way different than the rings of the old days. They're synchronizers.
Yeah, in the fluids, we talk about fluids all the time, and they're so specialized. So make sure you're not, just because it's 7590, make sure it's supposed to go in a transmission and not just the differential.
The safest bet is always go with the manual recommends.
Yep.
So,
all right, we're going to go with Dan on his 98 Ford Escort. Dan, hopefully we can help you. What do you have for us?
Hi, guys. My grandson just recently purchased a 98 Escort with 95,000 miles. Hello?
Yep, we're here. Go ahead.
Okay. You put Freon in, and it'll hang in there for a couple of days, and it bleeds out. But the system still holds the vacuum.
So, that's interesting. We always do, when we do evacuate and recharge and recover the system, we do a leak check. The machine does a leak check, and some things will leak under vacuum that won't leak under pressure. We had a Dodge truck the other day. It failed the leak test under vacuum. We couldn't find anything anywhere. We pressurized it. There's no leaks. It was only low, about 4 ounces of refrigerant. So those can be tricky. It's nice that it holds pressure or holds vacuum, but really, in your case, it's the pressure. We've got to find out where that refrigerant is going. So electronic leak detector, or you've got to be injecting some ultraviolet dye into the system and then let it go for 2 weeks. Hopefully it lasts. If you charge it and it's out in a day, it may not be long enough to have the
dye
oil and the dye go through the system and show up. So it's important to get it charged to the right level with an ultraviolet dye, so hopefully we can go back and find leaks. And some of those leaks are easy to find and obvious. Some of them, I mean, it's the evaporator. You've got to look up in the casing. You've got to check around all the crimps and the connections at the compressor. There's a lot of places to look. There's so many different spots where you could be getting a leak.
Let's go with John from Sun City on a 2011 Cadillac. Go ahead, John. You're on Bumper to Bumper Radio.
Thanks for taking my call. I have noticed in the car when you start it up in the morning that, or any time it's been setting for some time, the air conditioner puts out a lot of sour-smelling air. Any ideas of what could cause it?
Yeah, that one's a piece of cake. I think even Dave could answer that question, being the transmission guy. Any air conditioner, you're condensing and you're condensating, you're running humid air over the condenser, or I mean over the evaporator, and it's drawing the air out of the system, or out of the air, or the water out of the air before it blows it into the car. So that water, in the August, you see water dripping out from underneath your car, clear water. It's the condensation. So what's happening, that water is just not draining out or getting caught up in there, and it's mildewing.
Right. You think changing his cabin filter would help at all?
Well, yeah, there's a couple things. Cabin air filters might mask the odor, but it's not going to make it go away. You really need to kill the fungus or kill what's in there. So changing the cabin air filter would be the first thing to do. Make sure it's clean, because even if it's not having the proper airflow and that filter is restricted, it might be conducive to the mildew in there.
Well, there's something that you guys do at your shop where you do a mist inside the car and you kind of bomb the interior of the car to go in there and kill some of that.
It's like the roach fog, I guess. I don't, never had to do one of those, fortunately. But yeah, it's called mist, and that's actually the name of the product is mist. And we have this special little machine that you put on the floorboard of the car, power it up, and you put this 8 ounces of fluid in there, and that fogs. And you look in the car, it looks like dry ice. Like if you put a bucket of water in there, it dry ice. The whole car is filled with this fog. You've got the cabin air filter out of the car and on recirc. So you're pumping this fog through and recirculating, and that goes in and kills all
that musty odor. I just can't
kills the
stand
stuff,
that smell.
and it's got a nice smell to it.
Let's go with Joel in Tempe. Go ahead, Joel. You're on Bumper to Bumper Radio.
Hey, Dave, it's Joel. Hey, Matt.
Hey, what's up, Joel?
Just wanted to add one thing about your belt thing, something that you guys probably know about, but really important, that they're more important than getting stuck. 2 cars towed in this week. Belts got sucked in around the crankshaft balancer, threw the timing belt off a Kia, bent all the valves. And BMW E90s, the later model ones, do the same thing, suck them in, break the timing chains, bend all the valves in the engine. So belts are very important.
Joel, most people, unless they are a BMW enthusiast, don't know what an E90 is. You want to clarify that?
2006, 2009, 3 Series.
Okay, so it's the 3 Series, yeah, the E90. And, yeah, it's amazing, all the different components that are affected by a belt. If you watch the video that we posted on Facebook, talk about Toyotas, you get a little bit of belt slippage. The computer is monitoring the air conditioning compressor's RPM and comparing that against the engine RPM. And they know what the ratio should be. And if that belt is slipping, the computer's going to recognize that they're not rotating properly.
It's going to shut your air conditioner off.
Shut the air conditioner down.
It'll still dry, but your air conditioner is not going to work, and that's back to the belt. Changing a belt, getting a belt tensioner, that's cheap insurance. So you can't be too proactive on your belt. The fact or fiction for today is I'm changing the coolant in my vehicle, and I got to do a 50-50 mix. Should I use distilled water when servicing my radiator?
That was kind of a question, not really a fact or fiction.
Okay.
I'm going to go along with you anyway. So 50-50 mixture. In Arizona, you could actually get away with, we don't really need the freeze protection as much here. We still need the boil over protection, and that can be achieved with even as low as 40%. But 50-50 is a good rule of thumb. That's a good standard. A lot of the coolants that we're buying now are already pre-mixed. You buy Honda coolant, it's pre-mixed. And the manufacturers are doing that because they want to control what's going in there. We're putting in good, clean coolant in, but in Arizona, our water is horrible. It's hard. It's got all these deposits in it. So that is a fact. You really should be using distilled water. And that's something in our shop that we've just within the last several months started going and using distilled water whenever we're doing a major cooling system repair or overhaul. Like last week with Joel, Arizona Imports, we're talking about BMWs. All the plastic components, you replace all of them. Now you make sure you fill that with distilled water and the right BMW coolant.
Well, let's go with Bill in Chandler. Go ahead, Bill. You're on Bumper to Bumper Radio.
Yeah, hello.
Bill, what can we help you with? Go ahead.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
I got a question maybe you guys can answer. I got a 49 GMC pickup belonged to my grandpa, and the old truck is perfect shape. Everything's good on it. It's original truck, never been wrecked, anything. And I've had some back surgery over the last couple of years, and it's been in storage for about 14 years. Plus, in California, in storage for about 25 years. But anyway, can you give me an idea of what that truck might be worth? I mean, everything, it's a GMC 49, and maybe this isn't even a call you can take, but just a rough idea. Not going to hold anybody to it, but...
Well, I promise you one thing, I'll give you $10 for sure, but I know that truck is worth a heck of a lot more than $10, I'm assuming. But... yeah, I mean, it's going to depend on a whole lot of things. The condition of the car, how, is it the engine that came with the truck? Is it the right transmission? How correct is it? Any documentation? Sounds like it's maybe been in the family a long time. So I bet that truck has a lot of value. And there's a guy that can help you with it. He's not on our bumper-to-bumper list, but a great shop is Tom Blackwell at Blackwell Automotive at
40th Street and Greenway.
40th Street and Greenway. He has an old... I've seen pictures of the truck. This thing it's amazing how well of a job he did restoring it. I don't know what the year was, but Tom would be able to answer that question. So that might be a good resource for you. Get him some details about it. He's probably going to have a ton of questions for you first, so you may be prepared with some of that information or even some pictures that you could email him. But try Blackwell Automotive.
Hey, thanks so much for the call, Bill. Go ahead. You're on Bumper to Bumper Radio.
Yeah, hey, this is Eddie from Chandler. Colin, maybe I was hoping you guys can help me troubleshoot. So I have a '07 Volkswagen Jetta Turbo. Went through emissions, and it failed emissions. The engine lights on. It looked like it passed everything else, but the engine light came on, and I took it to one of the local like auto shops here just to do a quick diagnosis where they plug it in, and they said one of the codes that came up was the O2C sensor or something like that. So I was just curious if that might be something that would have it fail emission, or if you have any other suggestions to troubleshoot this car.
Well, I didn't quite hear what that code was. I'd like to, if you have the number, I'd like to hear it one more time. But to back up a little bit, any time you have a check engine light or service engine soon light on a late model car, and when I mean late model, OBD2,
95 and up,
96 and up. 96 and up, anytime, don't even bother going to emissions because you're going to fail if that light's on.
Oh, really?
Yeah, absolutely. You will not pass it. They're not measuring what's in the tailpipe.
Gotcha.
It's plug and play. And they know if that light is on, the system is not operating optimal, and so you're automatically going to fail. So do you know what the number of that code was?
I don't offhand. It just says O2 something sensor.
Okay,
like an oxygen sensor or something like that.
So it could be a couple things. You can have an oxygen sensor heater circuit, and you can have and you can have an oxygen sensor circuit. And what the oxygen sensor is, it's a metering device, and it's metering or measuring the amount of oxygen in the exhaust stream. And that's sending a signal back to the computer saying, hey, there's too much gas down here. So the computer is going to adjust and adjust the fuel delivery through the fuel injectors and give it less fuel. And then the sensor is going to go, not enough. It's going to give it more. That's happening hundreds of times a minute or second even.
Right.
And then there's the oxygen sensor heater circuit. To get these cars warmed up and get them through, or get what's coming out of the tailpipe up to operating temperature and get that car running clean and efficient as fast as possible, there's a heater circuit in the oxygen sensor, and it's a metal winding, kind of like your stovetop.
Right.
And that's to get heat into that sensor and get that thing blowing nothing out the tailpipe as fast as possible.
In the old days, it was just one wire that went to your O2 sensor, but a heated O2 sensor is a 4-wire sensor.
4, yeah. And besides calling it an oxygen sensor, it can be an air-fuel ratio sensor. So it's looking, Toyota calls it that, and Subaru in some of their late model stuff. So there's There's a number of different things that could be. It could be a simple vacuum leak. You could check underneath the hood, just make sure all your vacuum connections are correct and tight. And, on the Volkswagens, we see there's some check valves. And I can see Charles at my shop right now going, don't forget about the check valve, Matt. There's some of that quarterbacking. But these check valves, they just kind of rot, and the plastic deteriorates, and there's holes in it. It looks like a mouse. It looks like a piece of Swiss cheese been chewing on. And that will create a vacuum leak for you. That's something simple you can change yourself. Vacuum leak could be dirty fuel injection system. Mass airflow sensor may cause an oxygen sensor related light, but usually you're going to get a mass airflow code with that.